Hi there guys, and welcome to today's lesson. In these Friday lessons we're going to be investigating different maths problems. In today's investigation we're going to be looking at decimals that add together to make either one or a whole number, and it follows the game of dominoes. But before we get started, write today's date, underline it, and then write the I can underneath. Pause the video here whilst you do this. Let's begin with a warm-up. Let's look at all the different ways that we can add decimals to make 1. For example, 2 decimals that add together to make 1 might be 0.3 and another number. Now, to work this out, because the 3 is in the tenths column, I need to think to myself, what would I add to 3 to make 10? And then put 0 points in front of that number. So 7 add 3 makes 10. So both of them have the 0 point in front of it and therefore would make 1. And that's because the 3 and the 7 are in the tenths column. What other ways can you find? Pause the video here, write the subheading of warm-up in your books, and then list the possibilities. You might have 0.8 and 0.2, and you might have some of these other examples that are shown here in yellow. So 0.1 and 0.9 because 9 and 1 make 10, 0.2 and 0.8 because 8 and 2 make 10, sorry, but because 0 points in front of it, it makes 1, 0.3 add 0.7, 0.4 and 0.6, 0.5 and 0.5. Now, if you decided to start looking at the hundredths, so 2 digits after the decimal point, you might have some like this, 0.01 and 0.99, because 99 add 1 makes 100, and that's because they involve the hundredths column, so we're looking for digits that add together to make 100. And of course there are plenty more. So let's look at our task today. There are 5 different investigations. All of them are very similar, but they increase in difficulty. So number 5 is the most difficult before the stretch. So if you start at number 1, it's slightly more straightforward than if you started at number 5. I would advise perhaps starting at number 1 and moving through them. However, if you've done number 1 and you feel confident, it might be worth moving on to, say, number 3. All of them follow the similar game of dominoes. Connect the ends of the dominoes that total a number. On the sheet, it will tell you what the total needs to be. In this example, I'm going to put the ends of the dominoes together so that the numbers joined together make 1. So as you can see, I've got a blue domino and an orange domino. My options are 0.6, 0.1 and 0.3 and 0.9. So if I picked 0.3 and were to join it to 0.1 or 0.6, would they add together to make 1? Well, 3 add 1 is 4, so that can't be true, and 3 add 6 is 9, so that can't be true. So 0.3 wouldn't join on to the end of either of those. I'm going to check though now with 0.9 because I could turn the domino around. Would 0.9 and 0.1 added together make 1? Well, yes, they would, because 9 add 1 is 10, and they're in a tenths column. And so I would move them so they were in line like this and joining together. So 0.9 is next to 0.1, and because they're touching, if I add them together, they should make 1. Now let's look at another domino to be added in. The ends I have are 0.7 and 0.2. If I were to add 0.7 and join that to another domino, either 0.3 or 0.6, which one of those two would make 1? Remember, because it's in the tenths column, you need to find the number bonds to 10. Well, 0.7 added on to 0.3 would make 1, because 7 add 3 makes 10, and they're in a tenths column. and so they might join together like this. Let's add another dominoes to the equation. So now we have 0.5 and 0.8. Which end would I join this domino to? Would 0.5 join on to 0.2 or 0.6? Or would 0.8 join on to 0.2 or 0.6? Remember to use your knowledge of number bonds to 10 to help you with this. So 0.8 would join on to 0.2 because 2 add 8 makes 10. And then finally, one last domino, 0.4 and 0.5. How would this domino join on? They would join on like so, because 0.5 add to 0.5 makes 1, because 5 add 5 makes 10, and 0.4 added to 0.6 makes 1. I can go around the rectangle to check that all the joining dominoes add together to make 1. When you make a start an investigation, it's really important that you read the instructions at the top really carefully, because you need to know what the dominoes that join together add up to. It might be worth underlining the key information that you need. Then you're going to need to solve the problem, before finally checking to make sure that each domino that joins to another adds up to the total amount, and also they actually join together. As you can see on mine, it makes like a rectangle shape. All of the dominoes are joined to another. Pause the video here whilst you solve your investigations. Make sure you use the answers provided to check yours. It's really important that you check your answers all the way through. Take your time and don't rush. Read the instructions really carefully. Go back and reread them if needs be. There's a stretch available in the stretch folder on Teams. And finally, use the skills that you've been taught this week to help you to solve these. You can use adding or subtracting to help you. Let's just remind ourselves, as the end of the lesson, what our components to ones might look like. This is because next week, in our warm-ups, we will be looking at this as a bit of a recap. As you can see, I've got 0.8 here in my place value grid. The 8 is shown in the tenths column. This means I have to use my knowledge of number bonds to 10 to help me to solve this. So what would I add to 8 in order to get to 10? That would be 2. But because that's also in the tenth column, I would need a decimal point, and I would have 0 ones. So 0.8 and 0.2 together make 1. Now it's your turn. Use your knowledge of number bonds to 10 to help you to solve this. If you have 0.6, what would its component be to get to 1? So what would you add to 0.6 to get to 1? Well, 6 add 4 make 1, so there are 4 tenths, and then 0 ones. So the missing number would have been 0.4. This would be the same if we were looking at hundredths. So if there were 2 digits behind the decimal point, we'd need to use our knowledge of number bonds to 100 to make use that in order to help us to make 1. But this will be something we'll be looking at in our warm-ups and recaps next week. Until then, guys, see you later.